Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Reading Talk. I am your most gracious host, Ms. Sation. And with Real Reading Talk, to discuss the real systemic issues that are at the very core, the very foundation as to why we have these high levels of illiteracy in our Black communities and the ways in which we can combat these issues together, y'all. So, yes, in the house, as you all see on the screen, I have a phenomenal brother here with me on this episode. This brother right here, super dope. All right. I just found out about him actually recently, and I was just like blown away. I'm looking, I said, man, I said, he is doing great things in this author space because, as you all know, I've said before, I'm intentional about showing you guys Black authors, and especially in particular, Black male authors. Okay. That's extremely important. Why? Because a lot of times when it comes to high levels of illiteracy, yes, we talk about Black children, but our Black boys are the ones who usually deal with that levels of illiteracy and not wanting to read the most. And so when they see a brother who has written books and is promoting literacy, that is always going to be a big win in helping them get into reading. So now, without further ado, I need to introduce to you our brother right here, Mr. Kerwyn Phillips. All right, and let me give the introduction, y'all. All right, because this is dope. But Kerwyn Phillips, MBA. All right, is an author, speaker, and financial literacy advocate. He is the author of Malik's First Job, Financial Principles for Teens, which was featured in Essence magazine as one of the best books for raising money smart kids. Come on, y'all. In October 2025, he released his second book, The Money Twins, Nigel and Anaijah. Learn about payment methods, an engaging storybook that introduces elementary aged children to modern ways of using and managing money. How dope is that, right? We went from the cash and credit cards, all that, now we cash out, all this other stuff, right? Kerwyn is also the co-founder of the Youth Business Exchange, YBE, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that promotes and supports youth entrepreneurship through events, education, and community partnerships. In 2023, Kerwyn served as moderator for the panel Fathers in Finance, the role of Black dads in building family wealth at the Black Men Excel Conference, featuring Delvin Joyce, Prudential Advisors, Bernard Hampton, Bank of America, and Patrick Elam, FedEx Express. Since that same year, he has also partnered with Associated Black Charities to host the annual Teen Financial Literacy Summit in Baltimore, Maryland. Kerwyn's work empowers young people and families to shift their money mindset, build generational wealth, and create lasting legacies. Well, Dad, I mean, y'all, come on. Let's give it up. Let's give it up for our brother, Mr. Kerwyn Phillips. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How about yourself?
Hey, I'm doing excellent,
That's beautiful.
phenomenal, spectacular, fabulous, all of that great stuff.
Mhm.
And I'm just excited because this is one of my favorite things to do, which is to have conversations with brothers like yourself. Again,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
are in this author space. And then it's the financial literacy piece. That's the part right there. I mean,
Yes.
I want you to tell us how long we've been hearing about financial literacy, okay?
Mhm.
When you start giving us your background, because this is what I always love to do, because we know where you are right now,
Mhm.
but we need to get that backstory, right? We need to, find out where you're from, was you born here, then raised somewhere else, we need to know all that, okay? So please take the mic away, brother.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Kerwyn Phillip, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Um, Brownsville, Crown Heights section of Brooklyn. After leaving New York, I attended Morgan State University. with an accounting degree, graduated from there, spent some time in Georgia, then moved back up north. Right now I'm in Richmond, Virginia. And pretty much like the motivation, like, for me to get the path of financial literacy was from my own personal experience. In my younger days, graduating from college, even though I had an accounting degree, I wasn't the most responsible with money, right? A lot of the conversations that we see kids are having today, a lot of the emphasis on financial literacy that exists today didn't really exist back in the 90s, so developed a lot of bad habits, didn't really focus on saving. And, they say that, Murphy will follow behind you when something is always going to happen and you have to be prepared for it. And oftentimes when, I faced different situations, I wasn't really prepared. And it really drove me into a financial hole that took me years to get out of. And, getting out of it, not to say I'm like the richest person right now, but I think I'm a little bit more responsible now than I was back then. And just wanted to be able to give back to the kids, saying that, I wish I had this information back when I was in high school, when I was in college. And if I knew then what I knew now, I wouldn't have made those same mistakes. So, also growing up in an era of each one teach one, always wanting to give back to those that come behind us, I wanted to, find a way to give back. So I was doing some workshops here in Richmond, Virginia, using some other books. It was like a book club based around financial literacy. And I was using a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. And what happened was the kids were reading the book and had a hard time really connecting with the content because of the whole setting of the book. It was based like in ancient Sumeria. A lot of the names were hard to pronounce, and some of the cities and things of that sort. And it really took away from the lesson I was trying to give. So, with the challenges I was having, I said, okay, what other ways can I deliver this information or even run this book club with a book that these kids can relate to? And I came up with the idea. I said, well, I could write my own book, and that's what gave birth to Malik's first job. And it's funny is that my intention was just to have a book to use for the book club, right? But then the whole book just grew legs of its own and has opened doors that I had no idea it would have been able to open for me, and took me places where I never knew I'd be able to go. Who would have think that, someone coming across a copy of my book would invite me to the Black Enterprise Black Men Excel Summit to moderate a panel with these phenomenal men from these different corporate entities, and so on and so forth. So again, so just been on a mission and a crusade of teaching financial literacy to young people and giving them a book they could take home and really spark conversation amongst families. So that's it in a nutshell.
And I pointed when you said that because that's definitely something that's extremely important. That aspect of helping
Mhm.
our babies build home libraries.
Yes,
I believe there's a statistic that says about 60% of low-income families do not have a book in their
right.
home. So that's extremely crucial and important that you're doing that. First, I want to commend you for, again, like I talked to you before, for what you are doing. You are absolutely empowering and inspiring, and your voice is needed and heard. So I just want to tell you that, of course, I'm be giving you your flowers throughout the show
Thank you.
for
Thank you.
sure, because rightfully deserved. And what I would like for you to do though as well is I love how you led and talked about, the pain point, right? You talked about, your aspect of, hey, look, you had your own struggle, with
Yes.
finances and everything. And that's what sparked you to be able to start this journey of financial literacy, empowering our youth and becoming an author. Can you please go back and tell us about your foundation when you were being raised, right? So, what was some of the conversations, that you heard in your household as it pertains to financial literacy?
I would say that, we really didn't have too much conversation about money, you
Okay.
know. But I would say my parents were responsible with finances.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a two-parent household. Both my parents worked. They both had decent jobs. So
Okay.
I don't really have that struggle story, but at the same time, a lot of I guess the money habits that they had, the responsible money habits didn't necessarily transfer over because the information never transferred over to me. You know, like, they gave me, like when I was in school, my mother gave me a credit card. She said, use this in case of emergencies. And that was beyond, that was just it. So I had it and didn't use it. But then after a while, I said, you know what, well, I got this credit card I could use, and started using it and started swiping and swiping and swiping and not thinking about, that this money had to be paid back, that, because again, I didn't see the statement, right? So, ran up the credit card bill,
Mm-hmm.
and just again, because I had no knowledge about, where the money was coming from. I was just spending like it was, like it was nothing. And again, that's just, I guess, the lack of conversation
Mm-hmm.
created that responsibility. That's why I say now that the parents have to have that conversation with the kids, you know, um, that way they can develop those good money habits, or just that way they can just have that responsibility, because again, even though, as I said, my parents were good with it, didn't mean I was good with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I didn't have that responsibility when it came to finances.
So, I want to ask you though, because even though, because even when I'm thinking about conversations though, just like right then, when you
Hmm.
told the story that your mother gave you the credit card, right? So
Hmm.
obviously she gave you the credit card understanding that you would, if there's any, need, any emergency that may occur,
Hmm.
that here you go. This is something. So right there, I look at it as that's still a message that your
Right.
mom was sending you, like,
Hmm.
okay, hey, look, obviously you're going to need, money to what if something occurs,
Right.
you're going to be taken care of in that regard. So I got a couple of questions. So was it a household in which you just, like you said, you didn't struggle? So it was a thing where, hey, look, anytime you ask for something, you got it. Like for example, like how it is, like kids ask for things like birthdays or Christmas or holidays or whatever.
Hmm.
It wasn't an issue. And then also, even when I want to hear if you can, remember in terms of when your mom and dad got that statement and they
Hmm.
saw, was there anything being told to you then, about, hey, look, what is this? What's going on? Yeah.
Right. So I would say, wait, repeat the first question you asked.
Yeah, so basically just asking because I framed it like that in terms of if your parents, was it a thing where you asked them for
Oh
something,
yeah.
you got it. It was like,
Mhm.
no, it wasn't no, Kerwyn, you gotta wait, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you good. Like anytime you need something for a birthday, a holiday, or whatever the case,
Yeah.
got it. Okay.
Yeah, I would say for the most part, whatever I asked for, I got, within reason.
Okay,
I
of
couldn't,
course.
I remember a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
This is back when the Jordans first came out.
Okay.
And my mother always brings this up that, we was out shopping and I showed her the $100 Jordans,
Yeah.
and she was like, well, that's good for Jordan, but you're not getting those, you know. And
Okay.
like, I don't remember the story being that way, but
Okay.
that's what she told me. I said, okay, well, that's your recollection, but
Oh,
um,
okay.
yeah, but for the most part, yeah, within reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do remember there was a period of time where like my father was out of work, and I knew I couldn't ask for certain things, so I had to get a job. You
Mm.
know, and what's funny was that I had an opportunity to take an internship at Def Jam Records. It was an unpaid internship, but I'm like, well, I can't do it unpaid because I need money this summer. So so I had to get me a paying job as opposed to getting that internship that I really wanted at the music label.
Mm-hmm.
So I still have like a level of consciousness to know that, hey, if you want certain things, you have to pay for it yourself, because right now, there's not as much income coming into the house. So I can't ask for certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So I did have that awareness, and went out and got my own job so I could pay for what I need to pay for, to support myself. Not like I'm like a teenager.
Right.
What do I really want other than, sneakers and clothes? Or at the time I was into music, so to support my music habit, to go buy records and tapes, I had to, have this job.
Right.
Um, but as far as the other question in regards to the credit card statements,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't much. I think after it got ran up is when the conversation had like, what's going on, This has to be paid back. So,
Mm,
but I think, but during that period of time, it wasn't spoken about until it reached that breaking point.
mm. So, and what I'm hearing you is like a lot of times when we deal in the Black community, it's when an issue comes up, we react instead of being
Right.
preventative. Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Yeah, and that right there, that's the crucial piece. And it's
Hmm.
all connected, even just with literacy.
Yeah.
We talk about it makes me think about, when you have a parent who may reach out to me because I'm a reading tutor, and they'll reach out after their child, is already on the verge of maybe not passing that test, or it's like, really, really, kind of a crucial piece. And I have to remind them is that, we have to make sure that we are being proactive, we are being
Yeah.
preventative, so that we don't have to get to that point to where it gets so bad to where now you got to do drastic measures in order for
Mhm.
it to get fixed, basically.
Correct.
So I want to ask you as well about in terms of your home life. So you promote literacy, you understand how important it is. Did
Hmm.
you grow up seeing your parents reading? Did you get read to? Did you grow up with books all around you? How was that for you in your household?
Well, my father had like several bookshelves, in the house. Um, a lot of books like from different topics, but I know a lot. He's a chef, so he had like a lot of books related to cooking on the like different recipes, and like he used to do like ice sculptures and things of that sort. So he had books that related to like different elements of cooking and food design and stuff like that. But he also had other books, a lot of religious texts. I know growing up, they had like a children's Bible they would read to me every night before I went to bed, things of that sort. But I did grow up with books around me. Um, and being grew up in a Caribbean household, so it's always turn off the TV and pick up a book, right? So the phrase "pick up a book and read" was heard quite often, right? And as a kid at the time, didn't necessarily read like novels, but I know I always had like comic books. I would read comic books, the Sunday paper. They would have the comic strips in there. So, but a funny story that I tell a lot of times is that I didn't really become motivated to read like real books, right? Until I had an incident in high school. So the movie Malcolm X came out. Now, well, let me before that, I would read like the newspapers, like on the way to school, on the subway. I grew up in New York. I would pick up the paper in the morning, just kind of glance through the paper, right? Just if you grew up in the city, you understand like if you sit on the subway to avoid making eye contact with people, you just kind of have to have something to look at. So I'd have the paper with me, right, to read the paper, just to kind of pass the time as I ride the subway. But going back to the story, like the movie Malcolm X came out, and at the time, the school that I went to, um, the baseball cap, it was a burgundy hat because the school it was started with an X, so it had an X on it. It was a burgundy cap with a blue X on it, right? And it was a predominantly white school. So at the time, this is when Spike Lee put the movie Malcolm X out, and everybody was wearing the black X hats, right? So you had white kids going home from school, traveling on the subway with a burgundy hat with an X on it, and people stepping to them and like, "Yo, what y'all know about Malcolm X?" So a lot of kids was getting beat up on the subway for having an X hat on. It was like it was an issue in the city. So I was with one of my fellow football players. He was on the sideline. We was talking about the incidents, right? And he had asked me, said, a lot of these guys, they beating these kids up, talking about Malcolm X, and half of them don't even know who Malcolm X is or why he's important, right? And this is a Italian American gentleman that was saying that. I'm like, well, he said, matter of fact, he asked me, he said, tell me why is Malcolm X important? And I knew who Malcolm X was,
Mm,
but I couldn't answer the question
mm,
beyond knowing that he was a speaker that came from the Nation of Islam.
mm-hmm.
So I'm like, so he caught me out there. He
Okay.
said, and when I couldn't answer, he said, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I was like, okay.
Mm,
So the next day, I went to Barnes and Nobles and bought the autobiography of Malcolm X.
cool.
God say, I'll never get caught out there like that again, you know. So from there is when I really started getting into books and started reading.
Mhm.
Um, and I read that book from cover to cover, you
Mm.
know. So, and this is back in high school. And then from there, just kept, reading beyond that. Because even as a young, like in my elementary school, not really like middle school, early high school years, me and my cousin would often go downtown Brooklyn to get we would get like Malcolm X tapes, like Ballad of Bullet or the Message to the Grassroots, and we would sit there and listen to it, and different speakers, because we were very heavily influenced by like Public Enemy, Boogie Down Productions and stuff like that. So we knew, we were familiar with the speeches,
Mm.
but beyond the speeches, we couldn't really answer anything else beyond that,
Mm.
right? Now, if the guy had asked me to quote, Message to the Grassroots, I could have probably did that.
Okay.
But as far as why Malcolm X was important, I couldn't, go beyond that. So, but that incident really motivated me to get more into books and start more into reading.
Mm. You said a lot of things that just came in my mind, but one of the first things that comes to my mind that I'm going to speak on is, you know, that book, that is probably one of the most uh, talked about books in the
Hmm.
Black community in terms of when people ask, well, what was your first book that changed your life,
Hmm.
inspired you? You know how many times we, including myself, man or woman, does not matter, in particular in the Black community.
Hmm.
And and I raise that up to say that that should be an imperative read for
Hmm.
all of our teenagers. In fact, that's what I had. My oldest son was 28. He had to read that book.
Hmm.
My son, who is just turned 22 a few days ago, he had to read that book as well.
Hmm.
And I'm like, and I did focus, I did more focus on like my son's reading it, but I do believe that everybody should
Right.
read that book. That's the first thing. So that, and then when you talked about one of the pieces, and this is what's going to bring me into the conversation about us in particular in the Black community with literacy and reading, because as we know with Brother Malcolm, peace and blessings be upon him, um, he was an avid reader. And
Right.
it wasn't when he got to jail, because I know a lot of times we would hear, oh, okay, he read the dictionary from cover to cover and then he read all the books.
Hmm.
Actually, his mother was the one who taught him how to read. And she would read to him as well as their siblings all the
Hmm.
time. And of course, his father being an orator and all of that. So I just say that to say he had a foundation that was
Hmm.
deeply rooted in literacy and the empowerment of Black people. So just for that piece alone is something that all Black children need to
Yeah.
grow up knowing. And the fact that here it is, this Italian American brother
Hmm.
was the one who had to say something, who asked you rather,
Right.
about, you know,
Who challenged me to the point? He challenged me
you
on
know what I'm saying? And
it.
and those types of things, it's like that. I mean, that's fine. I'm glad he knew, and that's great because that sparked, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
go down that rabbit hole, which is a beautiful thing. But it's still too. It pains me a little bit because when you have still these situations
Hmm.
where you have our youth who don't know about Malcolm X, El Haj Malik El Shabazz, or they don't
Hmm.
know, about other Marcus Garvey or Marvin
Right.
Collins, all these different people. But if you say names like Thomas Jefferson, George Washington,
Hmm.
know those names because, especially if you're relying upon the school system,
Correct.
those are the people that they're going to push down our children's throats, and that's why
Right.
it's imperative for us. So I appreciate you. I'm glad that you went and said, you know what, man, you could have, been like, man, what you talking about?
Hmm.
It's like, you know what, let me go do some research.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I love it. And you know what? And I'm glad you mentioned about you being because you have Caribbean background. I heard you,
Correct.
and I was wondering that. I was like, I said, I wonder if he has like a Caribbean back. Can you tell us, like, what your roots, like, what islands, what Caribbean that your family is from?
Yeah. So, my father was born in Trinidad,
Okay.
right, and my mother's from Barbados, but she was raised in Trinidad. I think maybe like 5 or 6. She moved from Barbados to Trinidad. So,
Hmm.
so I have family in both islands.
Okay.
And as a kid, something during the summer, we would spend like they didn't want us running around the street in New York. So one thing a lot of Caribbean families did, like especially in New York, they would send their kids over to the island. So me and my sister would spend summers either in Barbados or in Trinidad, just to
Hmm.
kind of avoid being, I guess it may have been cheaper than going to summer camp, right? To send us back to stay with family or whatever, But so we spent summers in the islands.
But you know what though? Yeah, that could have been true in terms of cheaper than summer camp. However, I just think about how that Black experience is connected because do you know this is something that folks like us being raised Black in America,
Hmm.
a lot of our people, now my parents didn't do this, but I knew a lot of people who did experience this where their parents would send them down south.
Yeah,
You
the
know
same
what I'm
thing.
saying?
Yeah,
And pretty much for that same reason,
hmm,
because it's like, okay, you know what? I don't want you to be wind up in the streets doing nothing or whatever, getting yourself into trouble, and also keeping you connected to your family roots.
correct.
Man, this is powerful. I love this type of stuff because what you're doing, you're bringing up all of the ways in which we can get rid of all of these ills that we have within our community. And I'm
Hmm.
talking about high levels of illiteracy, lack of financial literacy, not, making sure that we are setting ourselves up for the future, breaking all of the things that we deal with in our community literally can be curbed if we just go back to those simple things like
Yeah,
making sure that we are keeping our children connected to having that intergenerational connection,
yeah,
having them connected to their roots, whether you are they're going to do the grandparents house, what I'm saying, down south
hmm,
or in the Caribbean or whatever the case.
yeah,
All of these things, these are the ways that we can actually cultivate
hmm,
a positive community aspect where we can talk about things together, we can read together, we can study together. Um, so you just bringing up a lot of stuff, and I appreciate you because you're dropping gems, in this particular episode. I know, you know how like you'll be having conversation with people, and you be thinking
yeah,
like, oh, I'm just, we just, it's like, but I'm listening, and I'm just like taking out these gems, and I'm like, man, this is powerful. I
yeah,
want to also ask you too, especially you growing up in Brooklyn, and I know, in New York, it's like they said, like little United Nations. It's like
yeah.
all types of, what I'm saying, cultures and ethnicities. But in particular, though, with the Black community there, did you see a difference with like your friends who were, had like they were born and raised here, like their family was, from
Hmm.
America, Black Americans, and in your
Yeah.
household, like as it pertains to like just like even with things like um, with literacy or with just education period, was there like any types of differences that you picked up on or noticed? And even the fact I love, of course, too, you having a two-parent home because
Yeah.
a lot of us experience not having that in our community.
What's funny is that again, growing up again in the 80s, right?
Yes.
Um, in the neighborhood, it was still a community,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the guys, like a lot of the older guys that came up in the area, they grew up in the neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this is a time when, everybody knew each other, right? Um, and like I said, if I was outside cutting up, but my neighbor could discipline me, then go tell my mother,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, or go tell my dad or whatever. So this is the time in which I grew up in. And also, it was at the time of, like I spoke about earlier, the conscious era of hip hop. And I was very heavily influenced by hip hop. So everything that I'm listening, that's like you see kids today, they're quoting Lil Wayne and whoever they're quoting. Me, I'm quoting KRS-One, X-Clan, Public Enemy. Like I'm knowing all these lyrics. And it was an emphasis on reading and literacy. And also within the neighborhood, I grew up like a lot around a lot of Hebrew Israelites,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And they made sure, like the older guys made sure that that we did things the right way.
Mm-hmm.
I remember like back then, everybody knew when report cards came out. And they would ask, let me see your report card. Like they wouldn't ask me because they knew my house was straight. But other kids in the neighborhood, they would say, let me see your report card,
Mm.
and then I'd pull out the report card and show them, what and say, okay, cool, you did, and if your grades weren't up to par, the guys in the neighborhood, you know, they would, have a conversation with you.
Got it.
Sometimes the conversations got a little physical, but it was
Yep.
still get a conversation, say, yo, you need to tighten up, right?
Got
So the community which I grew up in, it was a community where everybody, even though we lived in separate households,
it. Mhm.
everybody made sure that the children were straight
Got
and the elders were straight, and everybody was doing what they were supposed to be doing,
it.
you
Mm.
know. So even though I had my parents, within the house, I still had, if you want to say, extended family
Yep.
outside of the neighborhood to make sure that we were doing what we were supposed to be doing. At the time, like when I was in high school, I played football, so
Mhm.
everybody knew that okay, he's playing football,
Yeah.
and they made sure like you stay on that path.
Mm.
One day you may end up in the NFL or whatever, So they made sure that I stayed away from certain things. And and I kept focused on school and everything else like that.
Mm. It's crazy, man. I don't believe in coincidences. I literally was having a conversation with another
Hmm.
educator. She's been on the podcast multiple times, and she's a literacy advocate. Shout out to Ebony Donley. But she literally talked about how, because she grew up in the inner city here in Cleveland, and she
Hmm.
said that by her having that installation of both her parents, and they were instilling in her, and actually her and her brother, but she, just talking about remembering though how she could walk down the street and they'd be like, hey, what's up, Eb? How you doing good in school? You made
Hmm.
the honor roll. Like, again, that extended family, that community pouring
Yeah.
in, rooting for her, right?
Hmm.
We don't see that though today. That
Yeah.
has been lost. And I know, like, because when you come out of high school?
93.
Okay, I came out 92.
Okay.
So that, because I'm talking like, okay, I'm like, yeah. So we know what happened in terms of in the 80s, what's that bomb that came in our communities?
Oh, crack.
Exactly. The crack.
Hmm.
And all of the things that you talked about, it just started to slowly start chipping away.
Right.
You had, even if you had brothers in the community, like you said, maybe they were street dudes. They wasn't into, what I'm saying,
Mhm.
education or whatever. But they still had that sense.
Yeah.
You like, nah, I gotta make sure Kerwyn good. You know,
Hmm.
I mean, you better stay in them books, you better stay on that football field.
Hmm.
But now what we see, man, nowadays, brother, and this is the part I need your assistance on what can we do? Because nowadays, I was having a conversation with some eighth graders in a school I was subbing in, and they were talking about smoking, like, but not just talking about smoking like with their friends out in the street, in the house. They were talking about how they were smoking in the bathroom, and then it was a aunt in the other room, and then they literally aunt in the other room. They smoking in the bathroom with their friends.
Mm.
One of the persons talked about how they were smoking, and then one of their parents found out, but their parents was just like, okay, all right, I'm not gonna stop you. I'm just gonna tell you things like don't share what they call it, the wood or whatever. I'm sitting up here, I'm like, they're telling me, oh, this is the advice. How we go? And then our kids go to school, and then they're being told, okay, you got to pass the test. You're reading on, you in eighth grade and you're reading on third grade level.
Hmm.
Brother Kerwin, a lot of them, and I know it ain't. Again, we got some kids who are doing great, but I'm saying like it's kind of like this culture, and even you have kids who are being cultivated in a good household, but they're kind of being sucked in.
Hmm.
What can we do?
See, that's that's a complex.
I mean,
It's
I ain't trying to
complex.
put all the answers on you, but I just need to, yeah.
Because I would say when I did work for a short period of time in the school system, and
Mm-hmm.
I saw some things firsthand to know that the system is broken. You know,
Goodness.
But I know when we speak about the community had to step back in, right? We speak about the school system being broken, where parents, like some parents, are now more detached from their child's education, right? I guess as a child gets older, we see the parents step more and more back, right? Like you'll go to parent teacher conferences in high school, and it'd be crickets in the hallway, because again, the parents may be working multiple jobs, has so much stuff going on, they don't have the time to really keep an eye on the child's educational process. Um, the OGs in the community. Nowadays, you have a lot of folks kind of step back. They're like, even like guys who I grew up with, who were like, the biggest tough guys in the 90s are like, man, them kids is crazy, right? You know, so, but for whatever reason, the older guys who have the awareness and, who have the experience and know what the streets give have to come back and pull these kids up under their shoulders, like, look, this is what you need to do, and kind of give them some guidance. Right now, the kids don't have any guidance, and they're just out here running crazy and doing whatever, you know. So parents have to become parents again.
Come on.
Elders have to become elders again and give that guidance. Or else we're going to have what we have today, and it's going to get worse if we don't really step in. But I know it's happening within pockets. Like I know here in Richmond, there's several organizations. I know one brother, a friend of mine, Paul Taylor, he has a basketball league where he brings in kids from different communities. Because we always know that in the urban community, especially like in the inner city, like in New York, in North, basketball was always a unifying factor. Where kids from different areas come in and play basketball. They all, we'll talk mess, but we all play together on the basketball court.
Gotcha.
So he has a basketball league where he invites kids from different housing areas that may normally be conflicting, but they all leave that stuff at home and come play basketball together. You
Mm.
know. It's another brother that has another organization where he comes. He meant him and a group of guys. They mentor kids. They mentor young black men, and they teach them life skills, like how to change a tire, how to tie a tie. This is etiquette. This is how you do this. That's all the different life skills our kids need. They teach that, and we need more of that. And I know it happens in other cities as well, but we have to continue to do that and make it expand to help reach these kids. Now, there's not one simple answer because this has been years in the making. We wish we could just snap our finger or just wave the magic wand and it all goes away and it's all simple. But with the systematic issues that's been taking place, because all this stuff was done by design you know, like me being a hip hop head, seeing the way they changed the music and how the music influenced our kids. The same way how they saw that, okay, these conscious rappers, they're making these kids, study and go to lectures and, it's empowering them. We need to switch it up and kind of push these groups to the side and bring in the gangster
Mm.
rappers and let's promote them. Let's have them on the radio. Let's rotate them over and over again. Because you're in education, people learn by repetition. You hear things over and over again. So if I'm hearing, the biggest gangster record on the radio 20 times a day, what is that doing to my mind? What is that image in
Yeah.
my mind? We look at what's on television. I remember when you could watch BET and you had Teen Summit and all these different, intellectual
Yeah.
programming that existed.
Yeah.
But now it's all, if you want to say it's all Tyler Perry movies, or there's not too much intellectual conversation being had on BET. And of course, it got sold and whatever the case may be. But as you said earlier, we can't rely on the system to educate our children or to take responsibility for our kids. We have to do that ourselves. No matter how busy we are, we have to take the time, we have to be intentional in stepping in and helping our kids to get to where they want to be.
Mm. Take the time being intentional. You reminded me of what my grandmother, Gloria Celie Rice, Granny, rest in peace. She used
Mhm.
to say that people make time for what they want to do.
Exactly. Exactly.
Period. And I love how you said parents got to be parents again.
Yeah.
Elders got to be elders again. And I think, and that's what we're dealing with. We are dealing with this aspect of, even with the adults, they have developed this apathy, this throw their hands up in the air, like, what, these kids crazy, man,
Yeah.
bump. And listen, I'm not acting like, okay, those thoughts, yeah, they go through my mind. I'm sitting up here like, damn, like, good Lord, like they are. And I'm definitely not under the belief that you're going to quote unquote save everybody. And I don't, mean it in that way. But you know what I mean? Like, you, there are going to be some people, they just going to have to, they're going to hopefully get it on their own. But there are kids there that they're waiting for us. They're waiting for us.
But I would say this too,
Mm-hmm.
even though we see, we may think the kids are lost.
Mm-hmm.
When we were coming up, our elders thought we were lost.
Mm-hmm.
When the kids were growing up in the era before us and they were, you know, um, in the 70s and you was going to say the hippies or whoever, they would say those kids were lost, right? So every generation is always the generational difference where the elders always look back and say, oh, those kids are lost. But at the same time, I have a lot of friends who were running wild in the 90s or whatever, but now they're accountants, lawyers,
Mm-hmm.
so they figured it out.
Figured it out. Okay.
So even though we may say, things look bad the way it is now, but there are glimmers of hope,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where I think eventually these kids will figure it out. You know, I remember when I was teaching, there was one kid who at one time threatened to have his brother come beat me up because whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? And but after I got to know him and kind of have a conversation, looking at him, you'd think, okay, this guy's rough around the edges or whatever. But then once I got to know, he said, yeah, I play chess. He said, I'd like to play you in chess one day. And you wouldn't think this kid with the shabby hair and his pants hanging down and looking, disheveled knows how to play chess, right? I'm like, okay, so he does have like a intellectual side where he thinks
Right.
things through.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps just the environment in which he grows in may not necessarily kind of nurture that, but he has to be, if given the right environment, those skills or those traits can excel. And it's all about getting the kids in the right environment. And I think that's most of the time. I think most of the issue is the kids are smart and
Yeah.
they have potential, but it's just the circle in which they're in is kind of holding them back.
Yep. And that's exactly. And to your point too, one of the things that you talked about was the having like mentorship programs, having
Yeah.
these. We have these different things, just like in here in Cleveland. We have like pockets of stuff, but
Mhm.
again, when you're talking about a massive problem, it's going to require more than just pockets. We have to have a system that we create, within ourselves in terms of just like people like you in the circles that we're in, where we understand that we need to raise the consciousness of our youth.
Mhm.
I think that's a big part of it. What would you like? You want to say something to that?
I was going to say that even though there may be circles in
Yeah,
different areas,
yeah,
ideally, those circles
hmm,
need to come together and form a bigger circle.
yeah, yes, sir.
Right? Because oftentimes, what happens is that sometimes some of us we have egos and we want to do things on our own and do things our way and not look at the bigger picture, right? The bigger picture is making sure these children have what they need.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about me, it's not about you, it's making sure that the next generation is set forth and have the skills and things that what they need to really excel and take things further.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to put our egos to the side and say, you know what, I can work with this brother. He's doing the same thing I'm doing. He has his group of kids. I have my group of kids. Let's come together and see what we can do together to make a bigger impact. And let's say we come together. There's another brother across town. He has his program. Come, let's sit down together. Let's do something big. Let's have a massive summit where we have all these kids from across the city sit down together and we talk to all of them at the same time. And they see us, the different heads of these different organizations sitting together, collaborating and working together. what does that do to them? They say, well, you know what? I don't know this brother over here. He lives across town, or he may go to a different school, and maybe I can sit down and talk to him and learn more about him. Because oftentimes the problem is lack of communication. That's one of the biggest issues that we don't talk to each other,
Mm.
right? And if we were to talk to each other, we'll realize we have more in common than we have different. And these kids do the same thing. They'll realize, we have more in common than different. Just like you mentioned earlier, I was being sent to Trinidad. People in Cleveland was being sent down south. So either way, we were being sent someplace else other than our area.
Yeah.
You know, so it's still, even though one may be American, one may be Caribbean, at the root, it's the same thing.
That's right.
You know, but society will want to pin us against each other and say, well, you're this and he's that, and y'all shouldn't work together. No, it's the same thing. Like right now, listen to the comedian Godfrey has a podcast. It's called 154,
Okay.
right? Where he
Okay.
speaks about it's him and some other brothers that are from Nigeria, and they
Mm.
speak about their upbringing, and I listen to them.
Yeah.
And even though it's a Nigerian story, and they talk about how their parents were and grandparents, I'm like, I can relate to it because even though it's Nigerian, I think within Black culture, it's all from the same root. So it's going to be more similarities than difference.
Yep.
Like he'll talk about his father scolding him about certain things, and I'm like, that reminds me when my father used to scold me about certain things.
Mm.
Just the accent was different. you know, right? He may have been eating fufu. I'm eating curry chicken,
Come on.
right? So either way, it's all the same thing. But a lot of times society will try to pin us against each other, and then it's again the same divide and conquer tactic. We gotta be smart enough to know what it is and work against it.
That's right. The center, that center of that African centered piece. That's what it
Yeah,
all goes to, and what you're talking about. Man, this is beautiful. I love the knowledge that you're dropping, and actually, this will give me a segue into wanting you to talk about your books
yes,
because
ma'am.
we're talking about, and we are talking about the community and talking about how we have to come together. And it made me think about economics and things like group economics. I know you heard of the brother Dr. Claude Anderson. I know you.
Yes, it's Powernomics.
Okay, of course,
Yes,
yeah. So, but and just thinking about just that aspect of where we need to be as a community, having that communal mindset as it
right.
pertains to building generational wealth. So, please tell us about your books and empower us.
Yeah. So the first one that I wrote, this one here,
Yes.
Malik's first job, financial principles for teens.
Yeah.
Again, this is the one that came first for me working the book club and wanting to create a book that was relatable to the kids that I was working with. So
Mhm.
this particular book is about a young man growing up in Brooklyn.
Mhm.
Um, he's going on a job interview, and he goes on a job interview, and then he goes through the whole interview process, and then comes back and talks with his dad and said, "Dad, I've seen like a lot. I hear stories of people struggling with their finances and stuff like that, and I don't want that to be me. Can you please give me some guidance on how I can manage my finances?" And he sits down with his dad, and dad shares with him 9 key principles of financial literacy. So again, it's something basic to kind of get the kids started. It was written for teens and just kind of sparked that conversation. And then recently, and what happened, like throughout the years of me promoting the book and doing different things, people always approach me like, "Well, do you have something for younger kids, like elementary school kids?" So I'm like, "Okay." So that's what then gave birth to this second book. It's called The Money Twins.
Okay.
Nigel learn about payment methods, and this one is about two siblings who see their parents, spending money. They go to the circus and they go to the venue. They don't take cash, and they go to a street vendor. She don't take credit cards, and they're like, okay, so why you just can't spend the money the way you want to spend it? Like how are the different ways people spend money? And the parents explain to them the different payment methods. Because I think today, like we go to the store, our kids see us, tap the phone on the machine or swipe the credit card or
Mm.
whatever, and they don't realize where that money's coming from,
Mm.
right? So just trying to introduce some of those concepts and say, okay, well, if you do use a debit card, that's linked to your bank account, right?
Mm.
If you use a credit card, that's actually a loan that you have to pay back, you know. So again, if I had that awareness when I was spending,
Right.
like, wait a second, I'm just swiping or doing whatever, not realizing, hey, this money needs to be paid back, and I need to be a little bit more responsible,
Mm.
So just introducing some concepts to the kids just to kind of get them started on the path of financial literacy. And, both of these books spark conversation. It's so funny is that I had a friend of mine who bought the book. He
Mm.
bought the first one, Malik's first job, and his son read it. And then now his son is like pretty much checking him, his dad,
Boy.
on, okay, Dad, are you saving money? Are you doing this right? And kind of question challenging his father to have better money habits, you
Mm.
know. And so the funny thing is, like, he called, like, the friend called me, like, look, man, you causing problems in my household. You got my son all up in my business, asking me about money because he read your book, you know.
Oh,
So,
I love that.
we laughed about it,
Yeah.
But again, it's just, again, sparks conversation. Just recently, I spoke to someone who bought the newer book.
Yeah.
She reached out to me yesterday saying that she appreciated it. It helped her explain things to her kids about payment methods and things of that sort. So again, it's just something to kind of spark interest, spark conversation.
Mhm.
Because again, like I mentioned, I didn't have the conversations that I was coming up. So hopefully these books, when it come into the household, come into the school systems, it kind of engages conversation. We kind of talk about money and how to manage it responsibly.
Right. The preventative piece,
Yes.
that's what your books are doing. And I love how you said that brother, his son was causing good trouble in that
Yeah.
house.
Yes,
That
ma'am.
so if you could leave us with number one, tell us just real quick, because I know you said nine principles in the first book, right? Malik's first shot.
Yes.
One more time, the book. Can you hold the book up one more time?
Yeah, Malik's first job,
Right.
financial principles for teens.
Right. Can you give us just maybe just a couple of principles from that book?
I'd say one thing is to pay yourself first.
Okay.
This is a mistake again. I wish I had
Mm,
realized when I was first going out into the workforce,
okay.
is that whenever you earn income,
Hmm.
always take a certain portion and save it, and like pretty much pay yourself first before you pay any bills, before you pay your car payment, whatever. Set some money to the side for yourself. Create
Right.
a savings, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, because things are going to happen, and if you don't have the reserve for those emergency situations, you're going to have to go to predatory sources
Come on.
to get income, to get the money to pay for different things,
That's
right? I know now there's like a lot of regulations around like predatory lenders and stuff like that. But you know,
you still
when you
got
get caught
the
up,
pay
say
loan
payday
shot
loans,
in the hood too, though.
yeah,
Still, yeah,
the payday loans,
pay loan, right?
the rent-to-own companies, stuff like that, when you're paying triple the interest on something,
Right.
that it's crazy. You kind of get caught up in that world, and it's hard to get out of it once you're in it, you
Yes.
know. So again, so pay yourself first so that you have a cash reserve to hold yourself down when things happen.
Got you.
Another thing is to learn how to invest. Oftentimes we're taught to work for money, but
Mm-hmm.
not shown how to have money working for us,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you're able to invest and you understand, how the stock market works,
Right.
and different things, and being able, because a lot of times we're just taught to take our money, put it in a savings account in the
Mm.
bank. But
Yep.
then when we look at the interest that we're earning in the savings, it's less than 1%. It's probably about 0.001% interest. But
Mm.
yet the rate of inflation, the way money prices increase over the years, it's about 2 to 3%, right?
Okay.
So if the prices are going up, but let's say 3% every year, but I'm putting my money in the bank and it's only earning less than 1% interest,
Mm-hmm.
the money that I'm saving can't keep up with the cost of living.
Mm.
So
Exactly.
I got to find a way to have my money that's sitting earn at least at a minimum what the inflation rate is, right? And
Mm.
they say, again, I'm not a financial expert, right? I'm not a licensed professional, but what
Gotcha.
I've read is that investing in the stock market gets you at least 8 to 9% interest on average.
Mm.
right? So if you were to learn and understand how to invest in the stock market, that would potentially help you keep ahead of the rate of inflation, help have that money working for you, as
Mm.
opposed to you just, or you can start a business, right? That's another way to kind of invest. If you're profitable in the business, you're investing in yourself and in your business, and you're seeing profits in a different way. Um, but just learn the different ways, or if people get into real estate, buying and flipping houses, or that could be a source of income. If
Yeah,
you're renting out, if you own a house and you're renting it out, that's another way. So there's different ways, different methods to just to kind of invest and have money working at a faster rate than what the rate of inflation is.
that's dope. I love it. All of those gems and jewels. Three ways that you could help to empower families and of course, we know with your book, definitely, to raise the consciousness as it pertains to financial literacy within our communities. What are three key integral ways that you see that we can, raise that consciousness and financial literacy?
I would say one thing is that like we look at social media,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of us are heavily influenced by social media. The same way how a lot of us, like I know me and my wife, we share different videos and stuff like that. Um, may be intentional about who you follow, right? If you want to learn more about, let's say financial literacy,
Mm-hmm.
find those financial literacy influencers and follow them. That way they could be within your algorithm and you're getting that information. Because a lot of us coming through, coming up, we didn't necessarily didn't we're not the most financially expert person out here, but we can pick up tidbits by what we're listening to, right? The same way, like I said, you're sharing that funny viral video. Listen to, let's say, someone from Earn Your Leisure. Listen to like a Ash Cash. Listen to Dr. Claude Anderson or um, what's the brother's name? Boyce Watkins or whoever. Like be intent about follow those people. That way they can be on your feed and you're picking up things here and there. Miss Tiffany Alicia, the Budgetnista.
Yep.
There's a lot of folks out here, that are teaching financial information. So be intentional about who you follow on social media. And that way you can kind of get that within your feed and you're getting little tidbits every day. Um, Something else I also tell people is that when you go to oftentimes we go to the bank, those that still go to the bank nowadays, we go to the teller and we leave, like we take money out, we deposit money or whatever. But there's other folks in the bank other than the teller.
Mm.
They have bankers that work there. Sit there and talk to them and see what resources are available, right? You may have some credit problems. They may be able to offer you some resources on how to get out of debt.
Mm-hmm.
You may be interested in buying a house.
Mm-hmm.
They may have some programs or something they can offer to kind of get you started on that path.
Mm-hmm.
So the different things different goals that you may have financially, go talk to an expert. And these are folks that are there, available. A lot of times when I go to the bank, I see other folks sitting with the bankers and getting information, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But it's something that we can do as well. This easily, they're right there in our community. We have access to it. Take use of those resources. And I would also say is to set goals, set a financial goal for yourself. A lot of us are just, walking around and just living life, but we don't set goals. You know, look at where you are right now financially, and if you're trying to get better, say, okay, well, where do I want to be within the next 3 to 5 years? Do I want to own a house? Do I want to earn more money? Do I want to have more savings? And sit down and within the family and just have the conversation, see where you want to be. And then once you set the goal, and say, okay, now how do I get there? Right? And then that's when you go see the bank in the bank saying, okay, these are the goals that we kind of set. We need some help getting there.
Right.
What resources do you all have available to help us get to where we want to be? So I think first and foremost is that we have to set the goal and create a plan. And
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know how to create the plan, get help. Same way how if your car breaks down, you go to the mechanic. If your health isn't the best, you go see the doctor. So if your financial health isn't the best, go see the financial doctor. Go speak to, someone that works within that field and get that help. You
Mm.
know. And let me also add on,
Yes.
we need to get life insurance.
Mm.
We need life insurance, you
Mm.
know, um, because the GoFundMe is
Oh.
not life insurance. And there's strategies you can build wealth through life insurance as well.
Mm.
So sit down and speak to, agent within your community, a life insurance agent within your community, and learn, okay, what's the different strategies I could use to help create wealth by leveraging my life insurance policy.
Mm. Excellent. Oh man, you dropping them gems. And of course, and you're gonna already tell everybody where to get those books from, because to
Yes,
me,
ma'am.
especially when it comes to our babies,
Hmm.
that's where they need to start. It
Yes,
needs to
ma'am.
be united with books like yours. And if you could tell everybody where to get your copies of the books, where would you prefer them get the
Yeah.
copies of the
Yeah,
books?
so you can visit my website. It's maliksfirstjob.com.
Okay.
You can go there to purchase the books. That way you get an autographed copy.
Mm,
It's also available on Amazon, but on Amazon, you're not going to get that personal touch.
right.
So you might as well come to the Malik's First Job website and get it. You get it autographed, and you can have it for your family.
That's dope. That's dope. And I love too, I think the importance of you talking about going to your website, because now they're coming to you, they're coming to the source directly, and
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
traffic to your site. So
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, so you definitely you drop the gems. We appreciate you. And if you tell everybody where they can find you in them social media streets.
Yes, so you can find me on most platforms. Kerwyn Phillip is my first and last name. It's the at symbol Kerwyn Phillip, KerwynPhillip. You can also find my business page, Malik's First Job, and all social media platforms as well.
Awesome. And I have to make a correction because I said Phillips.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of
I was
folks
like,
do it.
and I was like, no. I try my best as much as
Again,
possible to make sure I'm saying folks' names correctly. I'm like, oh heck no. So I'm apologizing
it's
right
all
now
good.
on the show, okay?
It's all good. It's all good. It's all
Well, Mr. Kerwyn Phillip, I appreciate you. We appreciate you. I know this episode, I know folks are gonna be like, man, the brother brought it. You inspired us. You ignited that conversation as it pertains to financial literacy.
Yes, ma'am.
And the most beautiful thing about it is that it's put in a book, so folks gotta grab the copies of the book, and again, the books rather. So we
Yes, ma'am.
appreciate you tremendously. I thank you for being a guest here on
Thank you.
Company Talk.
Yes, ma'am. Appreciate you.
All right.
All right.
So you all heard it here. I thank you all again for listening to another episode of Real Reading Talk. I am your most gracious host, Miss Sasha. And remember to please keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. And remember, reading is freedom. Peace. Hope that you all enjoyed that episode. The brother Kerwyn Phillip was dropping mad gems, okay? And you guys make sure that you go grab the copies of his book from his website, all right? And also, just to remind you guys, I am a pre-K through fourth grade reading tutor, and my tutoring business is abclearntutoring.com. So if your baby is struggling with phonemic awareness, connecting those sounds to the letters, they need help with phonics, they need help with their fluency, they need help with vocabulary or comprehension, yes, I can help your child build those foundational skills in reading. Just go to my website, abclearntutoring.com, click on the free reading assessment today. And I'm also a Horton Gillingham certified dyslexia tutor as well. And also make sure you check out our website, abcread.org, because I am the founder of the organization and executive director of ABC Read. Okay, so we are out here in Cleveland and we are empowering the community by providing culturally relevant books for our families. And then we are just putting on these dope reading experiences, as we love to call them as well. And these are things that we are doing to help eradicate the high levels of illiteracy that plague our Black and underserved, underrepresented communities, okay? Also, make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Reading is freedom, you guys. That's right. And also make sure that you subscribe to the other podcast platforms as well. And make sure that you follow me on all the other social media that I am on. I'm out there in the Facebook streets, LinkedIn, TikTok. I've been forgetting to say TikTok. I'm on TikTok, y'all. Reading is freedom. That's right. All right, so make sure you check me out there. And of course, let me grab the book that you all see in the background that I got to bring to the forefront that I have co-authored. Healed, Empowered, Resilient, Her. All right. So this book right here is about helping you overcome those adversities, helping you push through your fears. My chapter 5, Escaping the Fear Trap House. All right. You guys been struggling with that, struggling with people pleasing and self-doubt, not following your God-given intuition. Well, this is the book you need to read, and in particular, my chapter 5, Escaping the Fear Trap House. So go grab your copy on Amazon, or you can reach out to me at info@abclearntutoring.com to send me your information, and I can mail you a copy that way as well. All right? So once again, I thank you all for listening to another episode of Real Reading Talk. And I'm your most gracious host, Ms. Sasha. And with Real Reading Talk, I discuss the real systemic issues at the very core, the very foundation, as to why we have these high levels of illiteracy in our Black communities and the ways in which we can combat these issues together, y'all, okay? All right, you all. I thank you all again for listening. And the book that I've been reading actually is called Let Them by Mel Robbins. I've been reading that book. That book, very insightful. Just the aspect of not allowing people to control your responses. All right, being in self-control and learning to be to respond and not react. So it's a lot of gems in that book, and so I would definitely recommend that you grab a copy of that book. All right, so you all take care. And remember to keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. Reading is freedom. Peace.